Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Emergency Housing Vouchers office hours for today. We'll just give everyone a little bit of time to come into the room, and then we'll go over some housekeeping. Okay, next slide, please, Ari. Welcome again, everyone, to office hours. As a reminder, this session is being recorded and the recording will be shared at the hud.gov/EHV website. All participants are muted. If you are having trouble connecting your computer audio, you can use the call-in information that's provided here on this slide, and Nicole put into the chat for everyone as well. Please remember to submit all of your questions through the Q&A box. And if you're having technical issues, please let us know in the Q&A box. Next slide, please. So the audience today is, as always, continuums of care, public housing agencies, victim service providers, and other EHV partners. And the purpose is to share information and provide an opportunity to ask EHV related questions to HUD. Today's focus is the EHV dashboard. And also a reminder, if you're experiencing homelessness and in need of assistance, please visit this link, and Nicole put that into chat as well. Next slide, please. Here are a list of your resource advisors today from HUD's Office of Public and Indian Housing, as well as HUD's Special Needs Assistance Programs Office. And then from Technical Assistance Collaborative, or TAC, who are facilitating this webinar today. Next slide, please. Our agenda today is pretty simple. We're just going to have an EHV dashboard demo, take some time for HUD Q&A, and then provide you with some reminders before closing. Next slide, please. Okay, and I will turn it over to Danielle Garcia of HUD.
Great, thank you so much, Emila. And Marika, if you wouldn't mind starting to share your screen, I can kick off with opening remarks here. But thank you everyone for joining. My name is Danielle Garcia. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor in the Office of Public Housing and Voucher Programs. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Marika Bertram. We are very excited that the data on the dashboard for the EHV program is public, and it's going to make it very easy to pinpoint bottlenecks and provide targeted outreach and technical assistance. So before we dive into the dashboard, I wanted to start by just pointing out a few things to keep in mind as you're looking at the data. The first thing is when you're looking at the dashboard data, you don't want to think of this as reflecting program performance. I'm going to tell you why. There is probably still a lot of data that is still missing. This is a brand new program. There was a delay with Housing Authority systems getting updated with the new EHV code. And so there's a very high chance that some vouchers have been submitted without the correct EHV code into our IMS PIC software. And therefore, they may not be identifying as an EHV family. One other important reminder, many of you know this, PHAs have a deadline to transmit the lease data, the leased 500-58, up to 60 days after move-in. And if a COVID waiver was implemented at a particular housing authority, that was extended to 90 days. So this means the leasing data available today would be an illustration of where the program was 60 to 90 days ago. So just something to keep in mind there. The second thing to flag is that HUD will be paying administrative fees and HAT fees based on the data in the dashboard. So working with housing authorities to get this data accurate is one of our top priorities. The dashboard is going to make it even easier for housing authorities to find and correct reporting errors, and we're contacting housing authorities as well as our software providers to improve the data. The third thing to flag for you is that the data we are seeing right now with issuance and leased units is better than our other program startups like HUD VASH. And in fact, it took HUD VASH a couple of years to get up and running because of the partnership and some other issues. that a new program experiences. So low utilization at program startup is expected and very typical. And to date, I'm very pleased with the numbers and utilization that we are seeing right now in IMS PIC. The last thing to flag for y'all is that this population will take longer than a typical HCV voucher holder to find a unit. And there are also some challenges this population is going to experience with getting access to housing. And that can be as simple as providing documentation for eligibility. So we have provided some alternative requirements in our notice to help with self-certifications, but these are, again, some barriers that we are going to be seeing with leasing up the program. So with that, I want to turn it over to Marika, who is going to provide a demonstration of our EHV dashboard.
Thank you, Danielle. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be able to showcase our new public-facing emergency housing voucher dashboard. For all of you being able to examine this specific dashboard, it's on our HUD.gov EHV website. And so we have two ways for you to access the dashboard. You can either go to HUD.gov /EHV, and you'll see the dashboard actually embedded here on your screen. So you'll see the current date as of the information. It's always current as of the PIC system the night prior. And then you'll also see this overview summary page. You'll notice here that you also have a link to the EHV dashboard specifically, and this is actually will launch a separate web page all about the EHV dashboard. So I'd encourage you to go there, and that's going to actually be a great place that you could bookmark specifically to always access the EHV dashboard. This specific dashboard here is going to not only have the information and have the embedded dashboard, but it also gives you a sense of any IMS PIC reporting discrepancies. We have a specific exception report that I'll go over in a few minutes, as well as it has a data dictionary and user guide right here, and a video tutorial that is going to be posted soon. We also indicate a list of all EHV awardees with that data specifically in Excel, so that it's easy to access. And so we have all of that information with all of those resources here on our data dashboard webpage. So I would definitely encourage you guys to bookmark this and come back regularly. Once you're in the dashboard itself, you can either identify and start to work with the dashboard in this embedded state, which can be a little small. What I tend to do is I either use this icon here on the right-hand side to open it up in full screen mode, or you can also use this link. They both will open up that specific dashboard into a full screen, which will make it easier to use. So once you've actually opened up the dashboard, you're going to receive the introduction page. It will always showcase the date that the data is current as of, which is always the night prior to your current day. So it is updated every night. And our data is sourced from two HUD administrative systems, specifically our HUD CAPS Financial Data Mart and our IMS PIC system. And so in order to go between the different pages of our emergency housing voucher dashboard, you're going to use these specific arrows on the bottom of your screen. So you're going to go to the next screen and you will really see our summary page. So this is going to give you a national vantage point of the EHV program. So you're going to see the total EHV awards of 69,880 awards, the total EHV units that have been leased at this time. So that's 3,801 for a total EHV leasing utilization of 5.44%. You're also going to note that there is a map here which showcases different states with different color saturations. The darker the color, the higher their leasing utilization. The lighter the color, the lower their state's leasing utilization of the EHV program. You can also hover over any given state and be able to see their metrics. So for example, the state of North Dakota has a unit utilization of 40.59%. Current issuances of 68 vouchers. Leased vouchers is 41 vouchers, and their total EHV award was 101 vouchers. and you can look at that information. On the left side of your screen, you're going to see a list of all the PHAs with their total award, their current issuances, their current leased vouchers in the PIC system, and their unit utilization. Now, when you're looking at current issuances, you're always going to have the basically within PIC, it is any type 10 action, which is a type 10 issuance, and it has lessed out any expired vouchers. So these are current vouchers. They may have ended up in a lease, but they have not expired. For current leased vouchers, this is going to be any voucher that is been leased in the PIC system and has a current of effective date that has not yet left the program. So it has not received a type 6 action or an EOP, end of participation action. Now, when you're examining this data, it's going to showcase everything on a national level. But if you want to drill into a specific state, a specific housing authority, you can do so using these filters up here at the top, or you can even use this map here. So for example, if I wanted to click on North Dakota again, everything's going to adjust and you will see the call outs here as well as this table have all focused around North Dakota. And you can see that of the 101 EHV awards, there are 41 units leased for a leasing utilization of 40.59%. And you can see that the majority of that leasing utilization is coming from two specific housing authorities, the Fargo Housing Authority and the Grand Forks Housing Authority. So you can see that information quickly and easily by either utilizing the map, or you can also clear filters here and use one of the filters up above. So for example, if I wanted to use this state level filter, I can look at the state of Florida, and all of the information is going to zoom in to the state of Florida. And you would then be able to have a bifurcated list of the public housing authorities. So rather than looking through a list of 2,000 plus housing authorities, I definitely encourage you to identify the state first and then be able to look for a specific housing authority here. Or you can also look at a specific state and how it's doing statewide. When you're examining this type of information, you may also notice things that you would view as a data anomaly. And those are things that we will go over in exception reports later. But one of the things you might notice is that, for example, you could see here with the Gainesville Housing Authority or for Daytona Beach right here, you're going to see total awards, but you're going to see, an oddity between the issuances and the current leased vouchers. For example, with the city of Daytona Beach, they're showing 18 leased vouchers, but no issuances. So that PHA is actually missing out on the issuance fee of $100 per issuance because they're not reporting issuances at this time. Similarly, with the Gainesville Housing Authority, you can see that there's 10 leased vouchers, but only 3 issuances. This is another instance where you don't have an issuance for every leased voucher, and you may want to understand a little bit more about what's going on there. If you're interested in diving into a specific PHA's data, you can simply right-click on that given PHA, such as Gainesville, and be able to drill through to look at the breakdown of their unit leasing. So this is going to pull up their specific individual information from PIC. It showcases it by person level, but all of those unique IDs have been masked. So none of this is social security numbers or identifiable information. And you can see here that there are these issuances that they're putting out. So those type 10 actions for Gainesville, but the leased vouchers that they've showcased here don't have issuance data. And so that is where they have missed out on that $100 issuance fee. And it's one of the things that we have, contractors reaching out specifically to housing authorities that are missing this type of data, because issuance data is required prior to having a lease in the PIC system. It's not a fatal error, but it is something that is required by PIH notice. And so you can see here how that specific data interplays at a person level, as well as you can see if any of the data has actually resulted in any exits from the program. So this specific individual at the Gainesville Housing Authority actually leased their voucher as of the 13th of August, but already exited the program as of the 4th of October. So you can see they've already exited here. And that has resulted in, while there's been 11 cumulative leases because this person did lease up, there's only 10 active current folks in the program at the Gainesville Housing Authority. And to go back to your original page, you can simply click this back button. So that drill through feature really allows you to get into the weeds around what are we seeing around issuances, any expirations of vouchers, leased vouchers, and exits in the program. So I'm going to clear my filters again. And I'm going to go to the next page. So while this first page really focused around an overall summary of how current utilization is looking, this second page looks more at overall households served within the emergency housing voucher program. So there is a difference between the total households served and those in current leases. As we saw before, there's about 13 folks that have exited the program for the emergency housing voucher program already. Since its inception. And so you can see that the total households served by the program is 3,814 families. That is different than the 3,801 total current units leased. And that's because we have had those 13 exits from the program. So this is showcasing how many households have ever been served by the EHV program. And we're also showcasing how many voucher holders are still looking for a unit. So this is any person who has an issued voucher to them, so a type 10 action that has not yet resulted in an expiration action or a type 11 action, or has resulted in a lease up. So these are vouchers that have not yet leased up and are currently looking for units on the street. So as Danielle mentioned, we've seen a lot of issuances out there. There's over 13,000 voucher holders currently looking for units that have not yet leased up. And that's a really impressive amount of issuances that have occurred within this program in the short amount of time. You can also see here in this chart a example of the EHV awards, as well as the cumulative reported issuances. This is all issuances that have ever occurred, even if they have resulted in an expiration. So you can see the movement within that specific program, as well as how many households they've served. And then you can see in this right-hand chart over here, how many cumulative households have been served over time with their lease effective date. And what you can see in this is there's always a little bit of a jump in the cumulative households served right around the first of the month when we see a lot of effective leases coming into play. And that's something that we expect to continue to see as a trend. For example, if you wanted to look more at the Michigan State Housing Development Authority and understand what's going on there, you can also click here and all of the data is going to interact with you. And you can see that they've served 301 total households at the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. There are currently 481 voucher holders still looking for a unit. And this is what their cumulative households served over time has looked like. So it's been kind of a steady progress throughout the nature of the program. The other thing that this dashboard can show is you can sort the data by the different fields here. And so you can actually sort to see of a specific, who has the highest number of awards and how has their cumulative issuances and cumulative households served look. This is really where we do think that there is some missing data due to some of those problems that we had with getting the EHV code put into PIC in a timely manner with some of our IT vendors. And so we don't really believe that the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, has no household served yet, but that's something that the current PIC data as of last night does showcase. And so this is where, we do have some concerns where we are seeing data that's missing, and we're working with those specific PHAs to ensure that that data is accurately put into the PIC system. This could also be a result of that 60 to 90 day delay that Danielle mentioned, where PHAs do have that over 60 days or up to 90 days if they have a COVID waiver to put in those 5/8 informations for leases. So this information is all here at your fingertips, and you can sort by, which PHAs have served the most households at this given time. So while the first 2 pages of the dashboard have all really focused around leasing and issuance data, the next pages of the dashboard are all focused around funding. So I'm going to get into the next page. The data source for this information is all coming from our HUD-CAPS financial data system. And you can see here an overview at the national level again of what funding we provided for the EHV or Emergency Housing Voucher Program. So there was $1.14 billion in EHV budget authority that has been awarded for a total of 69,880 awards to a total of 618 PHAs that have received EHV funding. The breakdown of that 1.14 billion is right here, with 786 million of it going to HAP expenditures or housing assistance payments, 84 million going to ongoing admin fees, almost 28 million in preliminary fees, and 244.5 million in service fees. You can also see here which PHAs have received the largest EHV awards, as well as their requisite budget authority for that specific award itself. And you can specifically identify this for any given state. So for example, you can drill in and look at the state of Colorado and be able to see which PHAs within the state of Colorado received what EHV award, as well as their total budget authority. And you can easily see here that there was 11 PHAs in the state of Colorado that have received EHV awards for a total of 1,023 EHV awards and $16.42 million in budget authority. Now, if you had interest in identifying exactly the amount of money that's going to a specific housing authority down to this breakdown, you can do one of two things. You can either highlight it here within this table and you'll see the numbers all change to be specifically around that specific housing authority. So for example, of that 6.48 million, this is the breakdown of their EHV funds. You can also right click and drill through here similar to the other fashion on the other page of the dashboard. And instead of picking out the breakdown of unit leasing, you can look at the breakdown of EHV funding. And so, for example, the Colorado Division of Housing has that 438 vouchers, $4.34 million in HAP budget authority, 425,000 in admin fees, 175,000 in preliminary fees, and 1.5 million in service fees for their total budget authority of about $6.48 million. If you wanted to go back, you can simply click this back button and you'll go back to your initial selection of Colorado. So that allows you to drill in and really understand how that budget authority is broken out between the different categories of EHV funds for any given housing authority, or what it aggregates for a different state or national level. So you can clear your filters here and go back. The last page of our main dashboard is all about a state ranking of the awards. Again, this is all using HUD-CAPS data. Takes a second for this map to load. But what you're going to see here is a map showcasing the color saturation of which states have received the largest amount of EHV vouchers by state. So those states with the darkest blue right here have received over 5,000 EHV vouchers. Those with the next darkest blue have received between 1,000 and 5,000 EHV vouchers, and so on and so forth. You can look at this note right here to identify the different color variations. So you can see that these lightest states right here, lightest in color, have less than 200 vouchers for the EHV program. And then on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a ranking of the states with the largest amount of EHV awards. This is going to showcase, which specific states have received the largest amount of awards, but also how much budget authority they've received and how many PHAs received those large amounts of awards. So for example, California has received 17,066 vouchers in total for the EHV program, for a total of $344 million in budget authority. And that was divided between 71 different PHAs specifically. And then New York has a large amount of vouchers as well, almost 10,000, but that's only really showcased within the 20 PHAs within the state of New York, because NYCHA and some of the other large housing authorities within New York did receive large voucher awards. So that's the dashboard in a nutshell of the major pieces of the dashboard. As I mentioned previously, we do have an exception report. You can access that right down here back on the main page. So for those PHAs that are seeing some oddities or data irregularities with their issuance data, we did pull out and create this new exception report here that would identify those PIC discrepancies. And if you have a discrepancy here, we encourage those folks to email EVP Reach Search at HUD.gov, and they will be able to help fix those specific issues with the PHA specifically. So I'm going to pull that exception report up now, so that everybody can see that and go through that specific exception report. So what this is going to showcase is it's going to showcase any PHA, how many total PIC submissions they've received, what their total EHV award was, how many reported issuances we're seeing, and if they have any reported leases. And then the real crux of the issue is, where are we seeing leases without corresponding issuances? So any PHA that has this little red diamond next to them, they either have no PIC submissions yet at all, which means we haven't seen any movement around the EHV program, or they have a high number of their submissions missing issuances. So for example, here, AZ034, or Arizona's 34, they have 21 EHV awards, and they've done a total of 2 PIC submissions. Those PIC submissions were all leases where there was no reported issuance in advance. So if somebody wanted to understand more about how that was working and which unique ID it was, so again, this is all masked public, privately identifiable information. This is not a real social security number. We have a crosswalk of these unique IDs to understand which individual it is at a given PHA. So you can see for Arizona 34, there are these 2 unique individuals where they have leases in the PIC system, but they do not have any issuance data. And so this report is to help our contractor and the PHAs be able to identify where we're seeing those data irregularities, or where we're just not seeing any submissions at all. And we're concerned that potentially there has been movement around the EHV program, but they're not reporting anything into PIC. What you can also see here is, so there are quite a few of these red diamonds where we are seeing either no submissions, or we're seeing these leased without that corresponding issuance. We're also seeing these little yellow triangles. That means that they have a section of their PIC submissions that do have those corresponding issuances, but there are some that are missing that corresponding issuance. It's not a large majority of their program, but it is a part of their program where we are missing that issuance data. And then you get into these lovely green circles, which basically means that we don't see any data where we're seeing missing issuances. So if your PHA has this happy little green circle, there's no data that we see that is missing where you're missing out on an issuance fee. And so we have no concerns for all of these specific PHAs here. So hopefully this is really a helpful exception report to be able to identify any of those issues. You can easily, take this for a specific state. So for example, in the state of Arkansas here, you can see that these specific PHAs have not put in any PIC submissions yet for their EHV program. And for these PHAs, we're seeing a lot of missing issuance data. And these PHAs right here, we're seeing a lot of information that does showcase that they have all of the issuance data for their reported leases. And so we have no concerns about these PHAs. That's been a lot of information that I know I've thrown at you guys. At this point, I'm going to take any, I'm going to open it back up for any questions, and we can go from there.
Great. Thanks, Marika. This is wonderful. You did an excellent job with your presentation. And just want to remind folks, if you have questions, please add them in the chat. Right now, we have 2 questions pending. And the first question is the unique ID connected to a PIC ID?
No, the unique ID was fully created using a random data creator that we have a crosswalk for our contractors to be able to identify who that is, but it's not associated with anything that the PHA would have as a unique identifier. So there's no way to there's no way for the public to be able to do a cross reference. You'd need to work with the PIC contractor to identify it. But we're hopeful that these lease submission dates and effective dates do help PHAs have some sort of idea of who they are, but they can definitely work with the PIC contractor by emailing EVP research here to be able to understand exactly who these unique identifiers are.
Okay, and we just got another question in the chat. How can I get a unique ID? And I think I've just heard you say to look in the dashboard, find your housing authority, and then you can certainly contact our contractor who is working on resolving any discrepancies and can work with you in that regard.
Yes.
Okay. Next question. Is there a way to download the breakdown of unit leasing data for every PHA in the filter?
So there is no way to do any downloads within the public facing dashboard. If you have interest and you can reach out to your local field office, our internal dashboard, which has all of the same information, does allow for a download feature. It's something weird with the Office Microsoft Power BI that when you publish something externally, it does not include any download feature. It's not something that we turned off. It's part of the Microsoft suite.
Got it. And how often is the data updated again?
It's updated every night. So each morning we update it with data that's at current as of 5 p.m. the day before.
Wonderful.
So for today is the 16th. It was updated technically this morning, but the data was current as of 5 p.m. yesterday.
Got it. And that concludes the questions in the chat feature. And actually, we just got one more question. Let's see here. The question is, do we need to lock in expiration of voucher for those that were issued, but the family has refused the voucher, deceased after issuances?
I would think that if that family does not plan to use that voucher, that would we would want to have some sort of understanding of that it has expired at a certain point so that we can accurately calculate a success rate.
Okay. So we have an attendee who is asking a question, but you may have already answered this, Marika. How do we upload data for a PHA so that it's shown in the dashboard?
So the data is automatically taken from the PIC system. So as long as the PHA is using their PIC system, putting in their action type 10s for issuance and any, type 1 new admissions, that information is going to come to this dashboard automatically by using PIC.
Got it. And if you can go back perhaps to where the map is on the dashboard. This question is indicating, does a state being grayed out mean that we haven't gotten any information from the PHA?
Sure. So let's go to this example. So for example, Alaska is shown grayed out. If you look at Alaska currently, while it has done some issuance, they don't have any unit utilization yet. And since this map is about unit utilization, it does indicate that there is no unit utilization as of yet. So it's actually, it's blank. So any of the other states that have any sort of color differentiation, even if it's very low, that would be an indication that there is some sort of movement for leased vouchers.
Great, thank you. This next question, will issuance fee be paid once the vendor has corrected the reporting? I can take that question. So right now we are working on data integrity, and we're doing, we have hired a contractor who's working with us to make sure the payments go through, specifically for the service fees, the issuance fees, and the placement fees. And so the contractor, we anticipate that those payments should be made fairly soon. We're working on the timeline, and we are actively working to improve the data to ensure the payments are accurate. Next question, Marika, I'm going to ask this, but if Caleb, if you'd like to chime in as well, how are reissues of voucher captured over time until the end of the year?
I think we need a little more detail on that question. If vouchers are turned over, I suppose what we would need to know is, are you talking about individual voucher increments or individual voucher numbers? And we would also need to know how those are captured in the PHA system. So those are the main things we would need to know.
And from the standpoint of the methodology behind the dashboard, we have two different indicators. We have cumulative issuances and current issuances. Cumulative issuances would be any type 10 actions that have ever occurred. So if a voucher was reissued, any type of issuance that's ever occurred is going to be captured there. For current issuances, if it's been expired, this is not going to capture any expired vouchers. So it'd only be ones that are currently out there, either searching or in use, that did not end in an expiration.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn this next question to April in CPD. The question is, does all information also need to be recorded into HMIS, referrals, program enrollment, domestic violence clients?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for the question. So as far as HMIS, we the units that are under EHV aren't necessarily going to be recorded in HMIS. If there are pieces of your project or pieces of your program that are utilizing the COC program, then that's the information that will be recorded in HMIS. There should be some additional information. Matter of fact, I'll put any other information in the chat as far as any updates that we have for entering data for EHVs.
Great, thank you, April.
You're welcome.
And I see a few questions asking about, kind of what's going to happen in the future for housing authorities that are high utilizers and some that are low utilizers. So these are excellent questions. We are working on a notice that we hope to publish in the summer. The current notice, the current operating notice, does provide HUD authority to revoke and reallocate EHVs that are underutilized. So we're working on a methodology. I think right now we want to focus on looking at the data, improving the data. It's going to take us about 6 months to really see some trends with what's going on. And from there, we're planning on providing technical assistance. So we have a very strong, streamlined plan and a strategy to ensure that communities are using the EHVs to their best of their ability. And if there's any technical assistance we can provide prior to revoking or reallocating, we will certainly do that. There's a question about port in, port outs from other housing authorities. I do want to flag that on December 7th, we're going to have an EHV office hours specific on porting, so we can certainly take in those questions at that time. Marika, one question about PIC data. How does a user pull PIC data? Is that an ad hoc report?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it seems that the participant is looking how to know how can he or she pull PIC data. Is it possible to do an ad hoc report from IMS PIC?
I believe, I'm not fully familiar with everybody externally's abilities in the PIC system, but I do believe that there are ad hoc PIC reports that they can pull for their given housing authorities if they have the right permissions. Otherwise, I would encourage them to reach out to their local field office, who definitely would have that ability to pull any PIC ad hoc reports that they needed.
Okay, great. And I think the remaining questions are not specific to the dashboard. So I will turn it over to Emila at TAP.
Great, thank you, Danielle, and thanks, Marika. That was extremely helpful information. We just have a few reminders to provide. And there will be some screenshots, as you saw, of what Marika went through that are posted in this PowerPoint from the presentation. So that should help guide you when you're utilizing the dashboard. So just a reminder again that there's a transition to AAQ. So from the EHV at HUD.gov email address to the Ask a Question on HUD Exchange. So if you have a question, please submit your question through Ask a Question and not to that EHV at HUD.gov email address, even though that email address will still remain available. And Nicole posted the AAQ link in the chat. Next slide, please. And also, again, a reminder about requesting technical assistance. PHAs, COCs, and other HUD-funded organizations may request EHV technical assistance through the HUD Exchange. That link is also put in through the chat. On the last office hours, we kind of walked through how to request program assistance. So if you go to that link, you'll see how to submit a request for technical assistance for EHV. And here's a list of all of the topic areas that are covered by technical assistance. Next slide, please. To reiterate what Marika talked about with the EHV exception report, it was updated to include the total number of EHV awards, and this is there to help identify reporting discrepancies in PIC and utilize to resolve potential discrepancies for issuances as Marika discussed. So you can email evpresearch@hud.gov if you have any questions regarding this report specifically. Next slide, please. And also a reminder that EHV referral reviews are underway. The Quality Assurance Division is starting reviews of referrals from COCs and other service providers, and these reviews will continue through 2023. The reviews will assess the certifications provided by the COC or other referring agencies supporting that referred families qualify in one of the eligible EHV categories listed in the EHV notice. So QAD actually has already started reaching out to PHAs to request information to include those certifications, applications, denial information, and administrative policies. Next slide, please. And as Danielle mentioned, the next office hours is actually going to be on December 7th, so it's going to pause for the holidays. So join us back here on December 7th, and the topic of that office hours is going to be on portability in each EHVs, and it will provide guidance on pertaining to portability and provides PHAs with an opportunity to ask questions to HUD about portability in EHV. Final reminder is to visit hud.gov/EHV for additional resources to include these office hours recordings, materials, updated FAQs, and as well as the EHV mailing list sign up. Next slide, please. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you to HUD for all of the wonderful information provided today. We'll see you back here on December 7th.